Monday's Thaiger Bites, looking at the comments you've made on our various programs, also at thethaiger.com, at our Thaiger Talk, also on Facebook, but mostly I think today from our YouTube channel. And thank you to our members, by the way, for your contributions. We'll always get to your comments first. But we start with Robert Zantay, and he's talking about, they happen sort of every week with a police parade or the latest cannabis halls.
Yeah.
He says, that's why Thai cannabis always tastes mouldy. They compress the herb instead of treating the buds with the gentle care they need and deserve. That's why Thai cannabis always tastes mouldy. Well, why are you eating cannabis?
Well, I guess you can cook cannabis in cookies and various other foods.
It's not an area of expertise. Apparently you know more about it than I do. So yes, thank you, Robert. I'm suggesting, yes, beware of mouldy cannabis. The way I see it says, bizarre, and we were talking, I think, in the news last week saying that the news conference with the former policeman up in Nakhon Sawan was bizarre. He says, bizarre? If you're in Thai, none of this is bizarre at all. We all know what Thai police are like. Thank you, the way I see it.
Right, moving on, still in the thick of it, I have a comment here from Richard, who is talking about the police and tourism. So what he says is, Jay, for sure, 100%, it's going to have a big impact. Do tourists want to worry they're going to fall foul of the police? I think what Richard is referring to is someone posed a question last week saying that hearing news about the Thai police and the corruption will have a huge impact on tourism. And I said that I don't think it will have a huge impact. Now, Richard, just to answer your question quickly, of course, it will have some impact. This is a bad image for Thailand, for Thai police. We already have, where some things are notorious in Phuket, in tourist destinations, for being scams about the jet ski, about overpaying, about the taxis. So yes, I agree. This is a bad look for Thailand, bad look for Thai police, and definitely does not help tourism. However, in a couple of weeks' time, when someone is booking a holiday to Thailand, I don't necessarily think they're going to be thinking about a police officer making a crime to a drug dealer. I was just talking specifically about that. However, yes, you do have a point.
I think also that the news cycle moves on quite quickly, and people tend to have very short memories. So when we talk about the sad alleged murder of the Swiss woman, the 57-year-old, some 3 weeks ago in Phuket,
yep.
When people are filling out their certificate of entry for Phuket as of today, are they thinking about that horrible crime whilst they're doing that? I think people tend to forget quite quickly. Yes. My feeling is that they're probably not going to be too worried about a bit of police corruption, given that that sort of thing can happen anywhere in the world. Andy R. says, I love Thailand and the wonderful people. I think the country needs to get 75% minimum vaccinated before opening up properly. I imagine that's going to be really difficult in rural areas, and I think it will be another 1 to 2 years before I consider visiting the place I love again. So he's put his levels, his milestones of what he expects before he travels back to Thailand. Okay.
Right, I have a comment here and question from Freddy D, who says, Dear Tim and Jay, let us be clear. Are non-vaccinated people allowed to travel to Phuket? If you're a tourist, no. And also, if you're doing domestic travel, no.
Not at the moment. I think in the next couple of days we're going to see some changes in regards to domestic travel, because they are talking about reopening up the airways back to Phuket and other parts of the country and into Bangkok, which
yes.
has been a dark red zone. So watch this space is, I think, what we can say. But if you are a tourist and you want to come to the Sandbox or to the Samui Plus, or any other parts of the country that are open at the moment,
yep.
As a tourist, you need to be fully vaccinated.
That's right. Freddie continues to say, in most countries, the so-called vaccine passport or certificate is being considered, not only for going to restaurants, but also going to watch games, to the gym. to fly using trains. So that is the only way to slowly move to normality and convince anti-vaxxing people to take the jab. Kids are normally allowed to go to restaurants with vaccinated parents, so let's be realistic, not idealistic.
Yeah, we've got an interesting situation coming up, and I'm having a talk to Ben from Integrity Legal. I'm speaking to him this week about this issue. He's got some quite strong feelings about these vaccine passports, if you like. So we'll talk to him in greater detail about the legality and the likelihood of these being rolled out in Thailand in coming months. From Eternal Summer Rising, Thailand is open to tourists from all countries, but travellers need to obtain a special tourist visa, bring a PCR test and undergo a mandatory 7 to 14 day quarantine. He's talking, I suppose, generally about the difficulty in travelling to Thailand at the moment as a tourist. Many people saying, why are people going to Thailand at the moment? It's so difficult to get in there. Why aren't they going to other places that are much easier, have a much lower threshold to get in as far as paperwork's concerned? If you're a tourist in, I don't know, the US, wanting to have a bit of sunshine, where would you be going at the moment?
I don't know, Hawaii?
Well, there you go. If you want beaches, there's probably a whole lot of other places to go where you're not going to need all the paperwork. I wonder myself. As far as people from the UK travelling to Thailand at the moment, well, it's very, very difficult given that they're going to have another lot of quarantine when they head back. Okay, another one from you.
Yes, I have a comment here from Aurelio Flacco, who is actually talking about how Cambodia currently is upset with Thailand that they're trying to copy the Angkor Wat. So Aurelio Flacco says, why in 2021 we have to build something by copying the monuments of others. The cultures must be respected, and to appreciate them, we must visit them in the country in which they are located, the environmental, urban context, etc., etc. What sense does it make to reply? In my opinion, it is a very serious cultural impoverishment. So strong words from Aurelio Flacco.
Cultural impoverishment. The story is that in Buriram,
yes,
an entrepreneur is sort of building a mock copy of, well, he says it's not, but for Cambodians, they say it's just a mock-up of
the Angkor Wat.
Of Angkor Wat, which is, I think, it's one of the most popular tourism attractions in the world.
That's correct.
And appears on the Cambodian flag. Well, there's actually another temple that's already exists, but it's actually a real old temple that looks quite like the Angkor Wat temple somewhere in central Thailand. But you need to remember that going back 1,000 years, that this was all part of the Khmer Empire.
Yes.
And so that the architecture you'd see at Angkor Wat, there was some of it existing in places, especially around central and northeastern Thailand, which were part of the Khmer civilization at the time. I hope I've got my dates right. I'm sure everybody's going to tell me if I've got my dates wrong. So if somebody's trying to build a mock, does it really matter?
I think so.
Let the tourists vote with their feet. If they don't like the mock temple, then they won't go.
But when you're right, though, when you think about Cambodia, possibly for a lot of people, the first thing they think about is Angkor Wat. To take that away from another country is...
not that taking away. I mean, people are going to go, I can go to a facsimile of Angkor Wat, or I can go and see the real thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe, they're a lot more sensitive because it's Thailand and they're like neighboring countries, sort of relationship between the people. So I think that's why it's sensitive. But you're right. If you could go to the original, why would you go to the copy?
We'll leave it up to the tourists. From Ellen Likes to Animate, very sad Thailand is a no-go for us in the UK. I was in Phuket a few weeks ago and returned home not because of COVID, but because of the silly measures taken by the Thai authorities. There seems to be a lot of people who have come to the Sandbox. There are a lot of people who have had a great time and have enjoyed Phuket and Thailand even at this rather difficult time. But a lot of people are saying that they feel like they've had the wool pulled over their eyes a bit, and that things are not quite as good as they thought they would be. There's not much open, not much to do, and they think that all the levels and the layers of complexity and all the tests have just made it not perhaps a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
All right, one more from you.
Yes, I have a comment here from PT Tan, who's talking about Bangkok Sandbox and how some restaurants in Bangkok will only allow vaccinated customers in. So PT Tan says, unless there is a proper system in place, how could the serving staff in restaurants verify if the paper presented by the customers is authentic? Now, I believe Thai nationals and some of the foreigners have a sticker that they get after they're fully vaccinated on the back of their ID card. However, there has been news that you can actually buy those stickers.
Of course.
And you can just put it on the back of your ID. And yes, there is no real way to verify it unless, there's a database in where you could scan it and, you have your passport details, and there's a whole nother security concern about that.
Well, is the staff at the restaurant capable and knowledgeable about knowing what a fake passport looks like, or a fake sticker?
Exactly.
And when you get the sorry to interrupt, when you get the vaccine, you get given a piece of paper.
Yeah, like a vaccine certificate in a way. Yes.
Yeah, and then you can take that to the hospital that has been administering the vaccines in that area. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I was vaccinated at the X terminal up at Phuket Airport, the charter terminal, and I can go to the Talang Hospital, which has been looking after the vaccinations up there, and they will give me a secondary hospital certificate. So I'd have the hospital certificate, the certificate I got at the vaccination, and then also the 2 stickers on the back of my passport. So it is going to be very difficult for people running restaurants to know what's fake and what's not. And it will also open a whole new industry of people making really good looking fakes.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah. Moving on to some lighter questions. Tim, I have a question here for you from Dario, who says, how does Tim not know 24? And all I have to say is that, does the name Jack Bauer, stopping terrorism within 24 hours, mean nothing to you, Tim?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
I have no idea what you're talking about. What TV show was it?
Yes, it's a TV show in America.
Jack Bauer. It was Kiefer Sutherland?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, I might have heard about it. Never saw any episodes.
Going at
So
people, just...
do know something about it, but no, I didn't know what they were talking about the other day.
Yes, and to cap off a brilliant Monday, I have a comment here from S. Din Z, who says, in Aussie, a good red will be delivered to your door for $250. Now, actually, I asked you that this morning because I was shocked. 250 baht for a good red bottle. I mean, that would cost you about, for a good red, probably 800 to 1,000 baht here.
Well, 250 baht is around about nearly $11. And yes, in Australia, you'd be able to get a okay bottle of wine for about $11.
But that makes sense because I never really knew it was that cheap. So I've never.
You do know that Australia does grow.
Yes, that's correct.
Wines,
yes,
yes,
I know. But I didn't know it was that cheap. 250 baht. It makes sense why a lot of my Western friends or friends who've come from places like Australia and Europe drink a lot of wine because it's in their culture. It's quite cheap.
Have you tried any of the Thai wines, like the real grape wines?
Yes, I believe I've tasted it in Khao Yai. There are 2 wineries, PB Valley and I forgot the other one. It's got a more fancier name. But yeah, those are the only 2 wines that I've tasted, and they were okay. I'm not a big wine person, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really see Thailand as a huge grape growing area. The humidity would make it difficult. I think you'd need a sort of the...
Yeah, and that's why
I don't know,
perhaps they're found in places like Khao Yai because the weather is they're mountainous areas. The weather is a lot more colder.
You need the sort of the cold, I think, to make the wines work. I don't know a lot about grapevines. I'm sorry. Okay, well, that's it for today's Tiger Bites. And thank you for your comments. We'll always get to the best ones on the program. And thanks, Jason, for pressing buttons. We'll see you again tomorrow.